Hi, everybody. It's Talk to Me Tuesdays. It's your girl, Anja, and I am here with a true triple threat. Her journey to success is quite the magical one. Please help me welcome Disney superstar, cruise ship performer, Chelsea Nicole.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing swell.
Good, good, good. So I think you are just incredible overall as a performer, as a human being. And I just want to let you know that first and foremost. My first question, though, is how did you even get here? Like, I know you had a pretty unique start, right? So you started a little bit older or you started younger? Just tell me, girl. Tell me.
Yes, I don't know how I got here. I started dancing when I was like 13, 14 years old, just with my church in general, and didn't really start taking technique classes until I got to college. I was a part of a studio for like maybe 2 months around like 16 and a half, 17. But it was very, very short-lived. So I accredit my alma mater with like all of my dance training, which is wonderful. But yeah, basically started as a teenager and decided what I wanted and just ran for it.
So what was the moment where you're like, oh yeah, dance is definitely it?
I paid my own way through school. So I worked, I got partial scholarships, partial grants. And I came to the end of my sophomore semester and I just realized that I couldn't afford to stay. I couldn't afford to continue paying for school. So I ended up taking a year hiatus and I worked in an office during that year full time. And it was honestly the best gift that I could have ever been given. Because
Why?
that
Tell me about that. Why was that such a blessing?
it is what really solidified my love and desire for the arts, as opposed to like settling. For me, it would have been settling to like, sit in an office and do that full time. As good as I was at that, it just wasn't where my heart was. And I found myself just kind of shrinking, shrinking, just emotionally, mentally through that entire year. And after that, I was like, no, this is it.
You're
I
like,
need
I'm gonna be
to.
all in.
Yes. It's like no more fantasies of wearing pencil skirts. Like this is it.
So when you were at college, did you feel really behind at all since you did take a year off? Or I guess you were in college then. Did you feel behind in college at all as a dance major?
Yeah, definitely as a dancer. I think education wise, I felt pretty confident, but when it came to like ballet class and like getting my body, which I don't think was originally the design of the body type that was, in mind when the, ballet was created. I'm shorter, on the shorter side. I'm definitely more muscular and it makes it really hard to like close your legs in fifth position.
Mm.
But yeah, definitely walking into a class where everybody is literally speaking a different language and realizing that you don't know the vocabulary. And thankfully I'm a visual learner, so I was able to kind of, watch other people. And I would always put myself in like the second or third group whenever we would go across the floor, just so I could like see what was happening first and try to imitate that. Just because I did not have the foundation and the language, to understand what was going on when they would shout out, Tombe pas I'm like, what are they saying? What is this? Like, it's literally French.
That is definitely a true statement. So going from college, feeling a little bit like Rocky and knowing that your body type is not the first pick normally. How did you make it to an audition for Disney? And how did you own that audition? Because clearly you had to stand out in some way to land a cruise ship contract.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly I think I accredit my faith to a lot of that, just having very little confidence in myself, and especially as a very insecure, shy, quiet, introverted teenager. Going from that to having the confidence to step into a room and say, no, I belong here. And like, this is something that I want and therefore I deserve it. I've done the work to get there, but getting to that point, I auditioned for Disney 3 times.
Okay.
So it
For
was
the
not a
same
one and
position?
done. For the same one, I auditioned twice. So the first time I auditioned for Broadway. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like looked up
Yes.
disneyauditions.com, and like there was one that was happening in DC, and I was in Maryland at the time. So I was like, this seems perfect. I want to work for Disney. Why not? So I showed up and I auditioned for Aladdin and Lion King in the same day, made it almost to the last round for both of them, and just
So
didn't
cool.
quite make the cut. And then maybe like a year later, I auditioned for Cruise Line the first time in New York. Stayed with a friend of mine, slept on the couch,
Yes.
and showed up to the audition, and made it almost to the last round. And they were like, "Oh, we're mostly just looking for a Tarzan," which I was like, "What?
Which, why do you have me here then?
Clearly, I'm not a Tarzan." And so I left that audition also feeling kind of deflated, and it took me probably another year to year and a half before I like showed up to that third audition in Pittsburgh, for DCL, and that was the one where I made it all the way through. Got the yellow paper at the end where you fill in all of your information.
We always like that yellow paper for Disney auditions. Always.
Yes. Yes. And
So
I
you said you felt deflated. How did you
mm,
recover? I know this is a tough industry. How did you pull yourself together to be like, I'm going back? Because so many people are like, never doing that again. It really sucks. And like, how did you how did you even wake up the next day over and over and over? Because you still have to be training. So what made you even keep going?
uh, I think just connecting to why I moved. As I mentioned, my faith is a huge contribution to who I am and why I do what I do. And starting in church, to me, like dance was worship,
Mhm.
and translating that from church into like the general career as well. There was something just very like spiritual and freeing about being able to just move and like release my limbs, and connecting to that, especially having worked in an office for a year and realizing that like I did not want to do that. There wasn't
That's
really
not
much
it.
of a choice. And so I don't know, there is definitely something that you have to like tap into where you decide, you write it down. I've been in this whole book, I think it's called Dream It, Pen It, Do It.
Ooh,
And it's basically just about vision boards and, really solidifying your goals and knowing what it is that you want, mapping out how to get there, and then making a commitment to take those first steps to get there. And, there, like you mentioned, there are a lot of setbacks. You show up to a lot of auditions, and enough, or it's not that I can't do this, but it's that I may not be what they're looking for today. And another friend of mine kind of related it to food.
yeah,
When you go into the kitchen, today I might have a taste for an apple, and you might be an orange. And it's not that that person doesn't like oranges. It's just that in this moment right now, I want an apple. And
I
so,
love that.
there could be another day that you show up and they do want the orange. And so you just have to have in mind that who you are and your skill set is very unique. And no matter how many people on the face of this earth do what it is that you do, nobody can do it the way that you do it. And so you have an obligation to step up and to go forth, for those people who are watching.
Obligation. I love that is a true gem right there. You have an obligation to give your gift to the world.
Yes.
So you get your yellow paper, you're off to Disney, you're on the cruise ship, or you're in rehearsals. Talk about it. Are you scared to go rehearsals, or do you already know, like, I have the paperwork, I'm already in, I feel free to just be me and kill this contract?
I wish that was the mindset. I had a bit of imposter syndrome, honestly. Disney rehearses in Toronto, Canada. So we have 2.5 months in Canada, before you fly down to Florida. And it is a very intense process. On board, we have about 3 big storybook shows. And that contract specifically, we did Wishes, Aladdin, and Believe. Wishes and Believe are kind of like review storybooks, and so they're like made up stories where these characters go through all these different worlds to bring in like a bunch of people's favorite Disney songs. So you might find yourself in like the Jungle Book singing, "Want to Be Like You," and like, different things like that. So it's not like one story that everybody knows. But learning all 3 of these shows, and you have about, I want to say, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks to learn each show. And you just kind of keep pushing. So like you show up to day 1, there's like a whole what do we call it, assessments, and like, basically figure out who you are, what you can do, and like where they're going to place you, what you're going to understudy,
Okay.
all of that.
Hmm.
And then, you jump right into rehearsals. And we started our rehearsal process with the most difficult dance I've ever done in my entire life. And
So
what's really,
I think that that is so important for people to realize is that you work so hard, right? Like we went to college, trained, we trained, we trained, and then you go and give your best self to these auditions only to find out that that's just really the beginning of
yep,
all of this. And that's a lot.
it's a very overwhelming process, especially in the beginning, coming from that insecure place as well, where I didn't still quite have the confidence in myself and who I was. I just knew that I wanted to do this, and so I was running for it. And thankfully, I kept, failing forward,
Belling
and
forward.
giving myself that opportunity. But yeah, showing up to rehearsals and like learning something new every single day. We had rehearsals from like 9 to 5, 9 to 5:30. And then you would show up the next day and learn a bunch of new material from 9 to 5:30, and show up the next day and learn a bunch of
So
new material.
much.
Just overwhelming process of like, okay, I've got all of this information. And then at the end of the week, it's like, all right, let's review. And you're like, oh crap, crap, crap. What did we do on day one? Like,
Did you
what was
ever
that?
find yourself in the hotel room going over your material when other people were probably like doing other things? I know I was really like in the hotel room trying to remember all of that stuff. Did you do that or were you able to like hang out and chill?
Um, I will say the one advantage with Disney is that I knew all of the music coming in. They have like slight variations and like remixes of certain songs, but knowing the lyrics and knowing the storyline of like most of these songs, I think helped immensely. I wish that I had taken more time to like really do my homework. I was not the greatest student in my first contract. I was literally just a fish out of water, just like, I'm excited to be here, but also, why am I here? I don't belong in this room with all these talented people. And like, what am I doing? Uh, so I really do wish I had taken more time to like go home and like actually go through things rather than like get back to our apartment and be like, I'm exhausted. Let me just like sleep and, watch something to like take my mind off of everything that just happened. I got a little smarter than second, third, and fourth contracts.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Definitely learned from my mistakes. But yeah, contract one was a whirlwind.
A little shaky learning process.
For sure.
So you're living your best life on the cruise ship, right? I guess talk about a little bit what's your life like on the cruise ship before we even go into like how the pandemic showed up. So
Oof, yeah.
best life on the cruise ship. What was that like?
I loved it. I had an absolute blast. Basically, we had 4 nights a week that we were performing, and then like 3 nights that you had off. And as performers, we got to basically act like guests whenever we weren't performing or like greeting. So as part of Disney, we have our shows that we do in the theater. There's like a pirate night. There's another like smaller show or two that we would do. Excuse me. There's another smaller show or two that we would do in the adult area as well. Top Up in Europa. And then apart from that, we would have up to 7 hours in a week of greeting. And greeting was basically what I called being Mickey Mouse's bodyguard. So,
Got you.
so we
Yeah.
were responsible for like setting closing lines and, just like interfering or not interfering, but kind of conducting the conversation between characters and guests and just making sure everything with those experiences went well. So usually that was like an hour or two in a day. And if you got a couple hours stacked up in one day, then you had a couple days off from that as well. So we had a lot of downtime, which I personally loved.
Did
I know
anybody
some
like
people,
recognize you like from the stage, or is there a nice clear border between performer and guest? Or does anybody look at you like, were you on the stage the other
I was a dancer ensemble, so I didn't get recognized as much, which I kind of enjoyed because it allowed me to kind of, just sit in the hot tub and like listen to guests as they were like talking about our show and
night? Yeah,
like
totally.
get the real scoop. More of our like face characters, like our friends who played like Aladdin or Princess Jasmine, who were like facing front of the stage with their face out all the time, tend to be recognized a lot more often. if we were traveling in like packs, as we tend to do sometimes too, the people would recognize us as like, oh, that's a group of performers, and like ask us questions.
We're easy to spot, right?
Yeah. I
Group of
remember
over the
asking,
top people, that's them.
oh yes. I remember asking a couple of guests though, because we were just like sitting around, reading a book and like having a small conversation, and a guest had like leaned over and was like, hey, are you guys performers? And we are like, yes, we are. And we were like, what gave it away? Because like literally I'm thinking we look just like all the other guests sitting around, like just
there's something that they know. They just know, because that question always is like,
she's like, you guys are all very young, you're all very good looking.
You're like, well, thank you. I don't know if that was in my contract though, but thank you.
I will say Disney has a type though.
Disney definitely has a type.
True. But yeah, I really enjoyed the downtime.
Okay, so you are living your best life. You finally feel relaxed. You're happy, like happy, healthy, healed, out here doing things. And then you're in the middle of a contract when the cruise ship shut down. What happened? Because of COVID.
Yes. What is really funny is before we got to that ship, so this was my third contract coming in. So I'm like, business as usual. I know what's going to happen. Like, we're good. Like, rehearsals are getting so much easier. I only had one new show to learn because we got rid of Wishes and replaced it with Frozen. So I was like, easy peasy. I'll just learn this new show. Everything else is review. Like, it's going to be a breeze. Another fun contract. Traveling on Mickey's dime. So, so we're in the middle of rehearsals in Toronto in January, and they call this random meeting. And they're just like, yeah, meeting after rehearsals, whatever. So we all show up, and there's usually two ships that rehearse at the same time. So everybody from the dream and everybody from the fantasy shows up to this room, and we're just like, oh, I wonder what this is about. And we sit down, and they're like, yeah, so there's this thing, it's called like the coronavirus, like not a big deal. It's not here in Canada. Like, you don't need to worry about it. It hasn't really reached the US. It's like over in Asia, like
a mystery.
Not a big deal. Yeah. We're like, okay, that was weird. Like, why call a meeting for something that's not a big deal? So I'm like, okay, whatever. Finish rehearsals in Toronto, get to the ship end of February, and we get on board, and we have a 2-week period called crossover. And during that time, the cast that is on board continues to perform. And then you come on board as the new cast, and you get to rehearse during the day, and they continue performing for the audiences in the evening. So after those 2 weeks, you've done your rehearsals, the old cast leaves, and then your cast takes over. So we're nearing the end of crossover. We're like really excited because we're getting ready to open. We're going to start performing for audiences. We're out of rehearsal time, and it is the Thursday before the Saturday that we're supposed to start. So every Saturday we did 7-day rotations. We would drop people off and pick people up every Saturday.
Right.
It's Thursday, and we're hearing guests ask questions of like, hey, are we going to be able to get off the ship this weekend? Like,
you're like, what?
Like, literally no clue.
We have no idea. We're here to perform. We have no idea what's happening in real life. I'm
like, I just left rehearsal. I have no idea what you're talking about. But like, guests are starting to ask questions, and we're like, what's happening? Like, clearly something's happening that we don't know about that seems to be important, because people are asking whether or not they're going to get off the ship. And we're like, of course, like, we drop you off every Saturday and we pick up.
You gotta go home. Like, we live here. You do not.
Exactly. Like, this is my home, not yours. But so, and that evening, that Thursday evening, the captain comes over the loudspeaker and like makes an announcement about, there's been declared like a global pandemic. We are dropping guests off, but we will not be picking anybody else up. If you had planned to like stay in the parks, as some people do, they'll sail and then they'll go like stay in the parks for a little bit. Mm-hmm. He's like, basically that's null and void. Like, that is not a thing anymore. The hotels have been shut down. The parks have been shut down. Like, everything.
Were you terrified? Because like, or were you just like, I don't understand. I don't know what's happening.
I think we were more in shock. I was definitely in shock. I was just like, this is like, but that's our job, is to like perform for an audience. So if we don't pick up an audience, like, what does that mean for my job? Like, yeah, we were just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll see how this goes, because they didn't tell us that we were like fired or anything. So I was like, I guess we're okay. Maybe it'll blow over in like a couple weeks. So
That's the best part. We'll be back to normal. Just give it like a week. No big deal.
yep. And that's basically what they told us. We had a meeting that weekend that was just like, we're, your jobs are safe. Like, we're good. We think it's going to blow over in a couple weeks. Like, we're going to keep you on board. Like, don't worry about it. And so we had what we call a ghost cruise, which is just a cruise without guests. And we sailed for a month. So a solid, yeah, so I had I had heard horror stories from like other ships, and had a friend who was stuck off the coast of Australia for a couple months on his ship as well. But we didn't end up having a single case for us, and at least we didn't
Know about it.
knowledge of it. If there was, like, the virus did not exist to us. We were in our own little bubble, and we felt safe. We were fine.
And then you came home and got sick.
Yes. So after about 4 weeks, we had a meeting, and they were like, yeah, I think we're okay. We think it's, we still think it's going to blow over. And then less than 24 hours, we had another meeting that was like, yeah, so we're cutting all your contracts short.
My heart would like crush, right? Like, what do you mean? I've worked really hard. I'm finally relaxed, and now I have to go home.
Yeah, I was like, I feel so much safer on this ship because all of us were fine. We were all, in close proximity to each other. We had still continued rehearsing just to give ourselves something to do. We had performed for the crew who didn't get to see our shows, which was a lot of fun as well. So the crew who's normally working at the same time that we're performing, they're like, oh, this is what you guys do.
I was about to say, they probably really, really appreciate that. Like, they've worked on the ship for like years and never been able to see the show.
Yeah, and some of them mentioned that to us too, and they're like, okay, yeah, we get it. Like, you guys are actually talented.
We really just see you guys run around the strip hanging out all the time. Like, we don't need to do anything.
There are definitely some crew who had that in their mind. They're just like, oh, who are these main stage people? They don't work. Like, what are they doing?
Getting paid. And they're sitting here playing around.
And they're like, well, I'm working my butt off. And it's like, well, we put in the work before we got here. So like, now that we have this job, like, this is my vacation because I'm no longer auditioning. I don't have to like really train as hard as I was doing before. Like, I have the job. Like, this is what I've worked for.
Yes, absolutely. So you danced, you sung, you like were performing, acting, all of the things. What do you hope to accomplish now? Now that that chapter is kind of like, I wouldn't say closed, but like we want to see what else we can get into, right?
Yeah,
is that where we're at?
For sure. Yeah, I finished. I actually did go back post COVID, just to like finish out that contract. I just felt like we left it on such an open end that I was like, I need to finish this out. So I went back from July to December and got off the ship and had a decent contract. It was definitely a lot more rough post COVID. With all of the protocols and like not being able to get off the ship for the majority of the contract, which was my personal favorite part, waking up in a new country every other day and like going to the beach every day. But yeah, I definitely left that contract feeling like, this is the time where if I'm going to do something different, like it needs to happen now. I got to give myself a shot and not just stick with something that's comfortable.
Ooh, so how were you able to do that? Because like, with any career field, I think you get this job that you're supposed to stay at, and this is what you're supposed to do. How did you know that it was like, okay, I've done this and like there's more?
To be honest, I had felt it going into my third contract. So the pre-COVID contract, I had kind of like felt that already. I was like, I think this has to be my last one. And it's hard because I loved the job. I really enjoyed performing. I loved the idea of traveling and being able to save up a lot of money. I was able to pay off school because, you don't pay rent or for food. So like you're getting to pocket a lot of cash, which you don't get to do in your normal life. Like I'm paying rent and I'm paying, water and electricity and like all of the adult things now. That
Which is like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. I was on tour, I was on a cruise ship, like life is different.
Oh yes. Very, very different. And so it was one of those tough decisions because it's easy to kind of fall into and just stick with. And honestly, there are a lot of people who do that and who absolutely love it. And like, that's where they want to retire. That's, they want to move up in the ranks and like stick with that. And it's a wonderful gig. It is a lovely job if that's what you want to do. But I just feel like if I got to the end of my career, I would regret not having given myself a shot to do anything different. And it will always be there. Like I've already been offered, a couple contracts since, and like they're opening up new ships and they're, going to constantly need new people. And having left, I think, on a positive note, as I always try to do, I try to never burn bridges unless they
Sure.
absolutely need to be burned. But do my
Then
best,
you set
especially
it
in this
on
career.
fire.
Blow the whole thing up.
Woo! No need to come back.
No. But yeah, especially in this career, because I feel like it's such a small world, and like every time I meet somebody, like they're just like one or two people away from like everybody else that I've worked with. So I do try to, make sure I leave a positive note everywhere and keep those bridges open.
So you make a very good point about our small community. So one thing that the pandemic did that I found so heartbreaking is that anywhere, almost, I'm going to say around the world, we can go to the dance spot, right? You can run into dance friends. I don't care if you're in DC, I don't care if you're in Chicago, New York, London, like you're going to find your dance family and community. And I know that so many great facilities have closed down, like dance studios, and it has broken kind of our community up. So, how do you find community when our community is so, for people who don't know, right? Dancers, we can go to New York and go to like several dance studios, and I'll probably run into you and give you like the biggest hug and like really touchy people, and we show a lot of love to each other. So, how do you find that now that our community is still very much fractured?
Yeah, it's definitely more difficult. I think having moved to New York, it's a little bit easier because there is such a much larger dance community here than there was when I was in Maryland. And it is easier to find a studio and to find classes for any and everything. I think things have definitely opened up a lot more now than like in the midst of the pandemic or even at the beginning of this year. But yeah, it's definitely a little more difficult because everything moved to online. And like you said, like we as dancers are such touchy-feely people. Like I remember working for this one modern dance company and like walking in and it was like, hi, I'm Chelsea, and now we're gonna roll all over each other. It's like
I'm touching all over you because that's what we do.
yeah.
Like
And that's a normal thing in our world. Like
it's so
that
normal.
wouldn't happen in an
Half
office.
dressed, like touching, like it's a lot for people who don't understand.
Yeah, like sweaty hugs are normal. Like
Love those. Like, what are we saying? Like, girl.
like, yes, we work hard. You're allowed to sweat. Like, that's fine. But things that like people would go to HR for in an office, like we find normal and endearing.
Yeah,
So,
that is so true. And then like even in auditions, like you like run up and scream. There's like a lot of like, ah, and boo, and oh my gosh.
yeah, I actually ran into a friend of mine from my alma mater at a callback for West Side Story last week. And it was just so fun just to like catch up with people and be like, hey,
So
like I
fun.
haven't seen you in forever, but it's like, no time has passed. And so I do
Mhm,
love that. And I
mhm.
always miss that whenever I'm away from it. And having worked for the same company for so many years and like not necessarily knowing, but trusting that I would always come back. You finish a contract and there was never a guarantee that we're going to come back for the following contract, but there was always that hope of like, I want to do another one. So hopefully they'll ask me.
Yeah.
And thankfully I was asked to return, for 4 years in a row. But like leaving that and having to step back into this world that I feel like I've kind of removed myself from for so many years was really hard. And I felt like super isolated when I first came here to New York and like tried to get myself back into classes and like get the courage to step back into a ballet class where like my body has not done this in a very long time. And I'm
Yeah.
around all these like actual ballerinas who are like tall and thin and gorgeous and like have their leg up to their ear with ease, and like finding the courage to like step back into those spaces. But I do think that post-pandemic in our dance world, there's been a stronger bond because we realized how fragile our jobs are to the rest of, our economy.
So
We're
fragile.
sensible to them, which
So
is very, very frustrating. And I don't agree with that at all because I think the arts are why we know what we know about history. You go back
Yeah.
and look at hieroglyphics on the walls of caves, and like that's how we understand stories and how we understand, what was going on during that time, and what happens in our world is passed on through history, through music. It's passed on through dances, through dances, and through storytelling, and everything that we know,
Everything, okay?
that we
Like
continue to pass
everything.
on
So,
through the arts.
duh. Um, so nobody gets to where they get to alone. And I know you said faith in the higher power in God, but is there anybody of human form that you would like to just love on, shout out, and say that they helped you?
Oh yes, of course. Definitely my family. My siblings are like my best friends, and I know that's very cheesy to say and probably stereotypical because I was homeschooled from third grade till I graduated. I did have other friends though, but
Hey, I love my brothers and I was not homeschooled, so you're good.
yes. But yeah, my siblings, my parents, definitely my church community, my bestie, my twin sister. I call her my Korean twin sister. I just have like, I don't know, I've had just the pleasure of having such supportive people, and like even people that I didn't know who kind of like spoke words of encouragement into me over the years. Even when I look back at these videos and I'm like, oh, I was not good. Like I suck
Ooh,
as a
somebody was
performer.
lying.
Right? But thankfully, like these people saw something in me that they affirmed, and that gave me the confidence to have confidence in myself and in my own abilities, and to keep striving for that perfection. Which I think is something that I do love about dance, is the fact that you never arrive. Like there's always further to build, there's always somewhere to go, and growth is something that is so huge to me, that like whenever I'm in a space where I feel like I'm the best, or I feel like I've gone as far as I can go, it's really difficult for me to stay.
Yeah, I love that. So it has been such a pleasure talking to you. You're such a triple threat. I love it. I think everything about you is magical. So I'm rooting you all the way. I know you have big Broadway dreams, and it's only a matter of time that God's going to open that door for you. Like, that's just facts. Literally, facts on facts. And would you want anybody to follow you anywhere, like social media wise?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. That is very, very kind of you to say.
It's true.
I appreciate all of your love and support as well. I know we've known each other for many, many years, and like are always like in and out of each other's lives like I am with everybody else. It's just the nature of our careers.
True.
But yeah, as far as following me, I'm mostly on the gram at Leap to the Rhythm, LEAP, Leap to the Rhythm. She's a dancer first. And that's basically where you can find everything else as well. I'm also on Facebook, and that's about as far as my social media goes right now. Working on the YouTube channel. I am on there under the same name as well, but we'll get there.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So you guys have been watching Talk to Me Tuesday. You guys can find me at it's your girl underscore Anja. Once again, it's your girl underscore ANJA. And we'll be here every Tuesday. So make sure you like and subscribe right there for all the gems. Thank you so much, Chelsea. We'll see you later.
Welcome. Bye.